Hello, and welcome to Only Lovers Book Club. We are three Latinx besties reading romance. We take turns, and this month was my turn. We will be discussing Stars in Their Eyes by Kacen Callender. Hang on, I just want to make sure the paparazzi do not see me. I'm walking the streets of Puerto Rico. I'm trying to stay hidden. I'm such a huge superstar. Okay, I'm done. That's my bit. Hello, everybody. Welcome to book club. The book is about two actors who are in a romantic movie, and they have to kind of like fake date, end up real dating, and part of it is appearing to the public as such, and then also hiding from the paparazzi at other moments. So that was kind of like the inspiration for my outfit today. I'm just like a huge superstar, but I am just walking around inconspicuously with a hat on and sunglasses in my hometown of whatever colonial area this is. That's my background. I'm gonna let everybody else say hello and tell us what their background and outfit is, and then we'll start talking about the book. Thank you for being here.
God, why the fuck are you waking me up at 1 p.m. on a Saturday? Don't you know that I went out last night because I'm a big, famous, important person, and I went and partied hardy, and I'm just so tired this morning. That's my persona, at least what I chose, because it was the easiest thing to make up. So I look like shit if you're looking at us, if you're watching this on YouTube. My makeup is smeared. I've got bags under my eyes. My eyeliner's all over the place. I've got lipstick left over from what I didn't wipe off. And there may or may not be some leftover drugs on in my nose. Elf powder more than anything else, honestly. I don't want to get dinged. I don't want people to see this from my future employers and be like, this bitch has cocaine on her nose. But for the purposes of this video, yeah, sure. And I'm having my morning after bev is gin and sour apple, because breakfast. But yes, my persona is a rich person who has not fallen from grace yet, but is working her way there by being just a fucking sloppy bitch.
That's perfect, because I'm the post fallen from grace. So I can't escape from the paparazzi. Like, now they're on me because I'm just like the headline of everything. So at this point, it's not so much like, oh, I'm trying to hide from the paparazzi, because it's impossible, hence my background of just like flashing cameras. It's more just like, I feel like shit in my heart and I look like shit on my outside. So I'm wearing a backwards cap and a hoodie over it, sunglasses. My beard still looks great despite my heartbreak. But everything else about me is just screaming like, this person's going through a tough time.
We've got the before, during, and after right now.
Yeah.
This beard is gonna go in my official Andrea Only Lovers beard rankings. I'm gonna have to like see, how it competes with the Three Kings beard.
I feel like I've actually, over the years, we've been doing Only Lovers for a long time. I feel like I've done it once every couple of years. Or maybe sometimes it's not a beard, but it's still, because there's that time that I was like the rugby player.
Yeah.
And also the time that I was a security guard.
Yeah, Drea's mask.
And there was one time where we all dressed as men. I don't remember what the book was, but I remember I got dressed at work. So it was like very memorable for me, but like all three of us did it. And I want to say I had a mustache or something in that one. I'd love to see a side by side.
Yeah, I'll fish them out. I'll see if I can fish them out
for my birthday.
Yeah, I wasn't able to find my headphones. So if you are watching and you see like a hat awkwardly perched over my overhead headphones, then so be it. I am not great at hiding from the paparazzi, so it's fine. But my hair is hidden, so I think that's all it's gonna take. So anyway, thank you everybody for telling the audience what we're wearing, what we're working with today, and thank you for your efforts. Tashai and Andrea, you exceeded my expectations. It's always a delight to jump into the call and see what the result is gonna be. So yeah, back to the book. So we are reading Stars in Your Eyes by Kacen Callender. This is, if you are doing the Only Lovers Romance Challenge, it can fit into the A Romance by a Queer Caribbean Author category. And we are going to be, discussing it pretty thoroughly. So Tashai, could you read us the book description off the book or off Goodreads? And then Andrea is going to tell us a little bit about the author, and then we'll get into our discussion.
Seeing only one kind of person as worthy of love or considered hot messed with my head. It made me think that I wasn't good enough for that role, too. Logan Gray is Hollywood's bad boy, a talented but troubled actor who the public loves to hate. Matty Cole is an up-and-coming golden boy, adored by all but plagued by insecurities. When Logan and Matty are cast as leads in a new romantic film, Logan claims that Matt has zero talent, sending the film's publicity into a nosedive. To create positive buzz, the two are persuaded into a fake dating scheme. But as the two actors get to know their new characters, real feelings start to develop. As public scrutiny intensifies and old wounds resurface, the two must fight for their relationship and their love. A heartfelt, hopeful, and nuanced story about identity, healing, and growth.
Kacen Callender was born and raised in St. Thomas of the U.S. Virgin Islands. They are the best-selling and award-winning author of multiple novels for children, teens, and adults. Their debut middle grade won the Stonewall Book Award and the Lambda Literary Award. Their fantasy novel, Queen of the Conquered, was the 2020 winner of the World Fantasy Award. And King of the Dragonflies, another one of their middle grades, won the 2020 National Book Award for Young People's Literature and the 2021 Lambda Literary Award for Children and Young Adult Literature. Kacen enjoys playing RPG video games, practicing their art, and focusing on healing and growth in their free time.
Thank you, Andrea. I know you compiled that author bio from a few different sources, but I like that you did that because it gave us kind of like a more complete idea of who the author is. And yeah, Caribbean author. I've been to St. Thomas a couple of times. I take the ferry over there from Fajardo. It's one of the perks of living right by the coast. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. I picked this book precisely because I wanted to read another Kacen Callender book. I've read a couple of other books prompted by Andrea's reviews and suggestions. And I had seen that they had come out with this romance. And I said, we got to read that one for book club. And so here we are. I was also interested in reading more men loving men romance and having a little bit more, of the men's in as part of our discussion. We read a lot of sapphic literature, and I just want to make sure that we also give the guys their due, give them a chance. So here we are. We're going to be discussing the book pretty thoroughly. I don't know if my questions are that thorough, but there will be spoilers ahead. This is your spoiler warning. Just press pause, get it from your library or your local indie store, and then coming back and listening to our discussion and, seeing if you agree with our thoughts. Thank you very much. Just a heads up, if you're interested in reading this book, there are a couple of content warnings given by the author.
Past childhood sexual abuse, sexual assault, bullying and harassment online, suicidal thoughts, homophobia, biphobia, parental rejection, verbal abuse, and mentions of potential overdose.
All right, there you have it. Make sure you read with care. Our discussion isn't going to really dive into many of those, but just a heads up if you're interested in picking this book up. I'm officially going to take my sunglasses off because I can't fucking see.
You also don't want the paparazzi to completely miss you.
I know. I do. I want like one
opportunity.
picture, like I don't want to try too hard to not be seen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, the very first thing that we encounter when we start Stars in Our Eyes is it's kind of like an author's note and a content warning. And it is about, trauma and how that can look differently from person to person, and how, like, if this doesn't look like the way that you deal with your trauma, then you shouldn't, I don't remember exactly what it says, and Andrea just read it to me, so I'm sorry. But it's about trauma, and it is about how it can look different from person to person. Originally in my search and research of the book, I saw that there were some mixed reviews about, people, considering this a romance or not a romance. And I feel like if they had read this author's note, they would have felt a little bit more clear about what was going to happen. And it certainly colored my expectations. So did it affect your expectations as you started it when you read this author's note? I mean, did you read it? It's okay if you skipped it. Did it affect your expectations going into the book? And then, then you can give me your overall impressions of what you read and if it matched up with, what you were prepared for, in a sense.
I did read the note. I'm trying to get better at actually reading information about what we're reading so that when I'm reading it, I know what I'm reading. So I did read the author's note. Knowing that this is about actors, I kind of understood where this was going to be going as far as like the plot and the backstory about the characters. It's interesting that we ended up reading this considering what is currently happening in like child star news. So we somehow accidentally ended up reading something that has some very kind of timely themes about the topic of abuse of child stars, and child stars being kind of turned into commodities by the industry, and the long-term impact that this has on people with their mental health, and the impact it has on their emotional and romantic relationships. So definitely knew that what was coming, at least to some degree. And I don't think that it necessarily affected how I was approaching this, reading it as a romance book. I think that it got to certain points where I had to remind myself that we were reading a story through the point of view of someone who has experienced multiple traumas throughout their life, because some of the behavior just seemed very like, why would you do that type of thing? But as the author tries to set the stage for with the note, nobody copes in the same way from different kinds of trauma that they've experienced. So I had to check myself and be like, okay, you know what? You have no idea how you would be reacting if you had experienced this kind of shit when you were growing up. So like, you got to give grace. You got to give grace to these characters. The character of Maddie has never been romantically involved with somebody who's had this kind of abuse in their past. And Logan is like someone who's never been able to go through the process of trying to start and heal from the things that have happened to him in the past. So no, I don't think that the themes did anything to affect that. I don't think the note did anything to affect it. I think it just kind of made it clear the degree to which we would be understanding what has happened to this character, and the degree of like fallout that we could expect to see, both inside the romantic relationship and inside the relationship the character had with other people in their lives. But I still think it did a good job of portraying how a romantic relationship could thrive and then also struggle within the framework of this kind of trauma.
Okay, I did read the author's note. I already was expecting a very traumatic romance book because I've read like 4 or 5 of Kacen's books. It's like when Emezi wrote their first romance, and I was like, these people are going to need therapy just based on all of the other books that I've read by Emezi. So I kind of went into it already kind of knowing kind of the topics and stuff that are just common in their writing. But I did appreciate, I don't think I've ever seen, I see a lot of authors' notes where people bring up content warnings, which Kacen does, but I really appreciated the, hey, just because these characters handle their trauma in this way doesn't mean that that's the right way or the wrong way. It's just the way that these individual characters do it. And that may mesh with you, or you might hate it and it might trigger you, like just fair warning, you know? And I think that was really cool because, yeah, it's so right. Like lots of people go through the same things and react to them completely differently, and process them in completely different ways. So I thought that was a cool thing I hadn't seen in an author's note before. But yeah, it didn't dampen my enjoyment of the romance. I thought it was super messy and super dramatic and felt like reality TV. I also really love that they were acting as writers, which is very like a writer writing about actors playing writers who are like faked. Anyway, it was a lot, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, author's note was a win for me.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I appreciated the author's note a lot, and I think that it was just like yeah, it was definitely a moment for me to check myself, because I think that in romance in particular, I think we can be pretty hard on characters for acting in a non-realistic way. Why would you do that, you know? And the thing about trauma is that it does make you act out in a pretty extreme and what would seem like a unrealistic way to some people who are maybe not like as informed as others are about trauma. And so I think it's just important for us to be more patient with Logan, who's like, you know, the bad boy. And I thanks for bringing up I felt I started reading this and then we ended up watching that documentary, the Nickelodeon one, and you know, that whole part about Drake Bell. I was like, whoa, like this is weird, a weird timing, but I guess it just kind of, I mean, obviously the documentary was very good and important for people to see, important for parents to see, important for people who were children and watching TV at that time to see, you know, to see what really happens when children aren't supervised and when they're around people who, you know, have power and, you know, want to harm children in that way. So it just kind of added a bit more context or whatever to what I was reading, and I guess maybe even more understanding of Logan and what he's going through and what Maddie is going through trying to support Logan. So yeah, it just was like, hey, just be prepared, buckle up, get ready to be patient, because this person is not going to be like the romantic hero that you're hoping that they are, you know? And I think it's important to keep that in mind. So yeah. So another part of the what surprised me, at least of the beginning of the book, is kind of like still an overall impressions is the structure, or at least how the story is being told. So we have it from first person point of view from both of the actors, but then there's also parts of like scripts of blogs or vlogs of people reacting, like gossip columns, and also excerpts from the actors' memoirs, like after the fact, which I thought was interesting. And I wanted to know, like, what did you think of that collage of I feel like it was time jumpy, but also a collage of just different points of view of people writing fan fiction about these two, people reacting to the news that Logan or Maddie had been cast and how people were really hating on Logan, and then also hearing the actors as authors, even though they were You're right, Andrea. It was a lot. They were acting as authors, and then they ended up authoring their own memoirs or something. And so it's a little bit convoluted. I have thoughts about that. But yeah, what did you think of the structure of it and having those different points of view, not only from the two leads, but also from everybody else experiencing this fake relationship?
I thought it was pretty fun. I think that it was an interesting device because I'm not on Twitter. I used to be, and then Elon bought it and I canceled my account because I was like, it's not worth it for me. I don't. And also, it's the kind of internet space where it becomes an echo chamber of like hate. And as soon as one person starts voicing negative opinions about somebody, it's like a pile. Anyone who's ever had a negative thought about that person just like gets drawn to it like a magnet, and they just like fucking pile on. So seeing that get included in the book, I thought was really interesting because people have these parasocial relationships with celebrities where they think they're really close to these celebrities and they think that they know these celebrities. And that's kind of what you get with the Maddie character is everyone has this idea that Maddie's this like flawless, sweet, young, innocent, naive person. And so you get the fans that are like, oh my God, he must be protected at all costs type of thing. And then you know that online there's these people who dedicate all their waking time to just eviscerating certain celebrities. And no matter what that person does, they're always going to be just like absolutely shit on, regardless of what's going on in reality. And that's what you get with like the Logan character, is he's been deemed the bad guy by the internet. And so anything that he does is seen through the lens of this guy's a piece of shit. And so I thought it was fun to kind of like see that make itself part of the story, because I would read some of the like tweets or some of the content and be like, ah, that's like really fucked up. And then I know for a fact that there are much worse things on the internet. Like, this is tame. Whatever is in this book, whatever they're saying is like a tame version of stuff that actually gets said online every day. So it was like, I found it like an interesting extra little layer of like, it doesn't matter what they do, you're never going to win. Like, there's no winning, even if you are trying to, at a certain point, like claw your way out of this shithole that's happening. Like, you're just not going to win. The only one that threw me off was the memoir one, because that's the only one that's like in the future, and I couldn't tell when it first popped up if this was like Maddie currently working on a memoir, which I'm like, bro, you've just been acting for like a really short time now. But then eventually it kind of dawned on me like, oh, okay, this is like an eventual thing. And I don't know how much I loved that, because it kind of would take me out of what was going on. And I almost wish like there had just been like an epilogue that was written from the point of view of this memoir. And that's when we find out that everything like does work out the way that it does work out. Because sprinkling it throughout just kind of threw me off. But the other components, I really enjoyed, because it, you know, I'm super obsessed with celebrity culture. I love celebrity like information. I do deep dives on people all the time. I listen to at least 3 different podcasts that have to do with like celebrities. Just because it's like a nice distraction from my life. And I've had to like check myself listening to interviews with specific celebrities and stuff, and realize that like I had preconceived notions about certain celebrities, and really like read myself and wonder like, why is it so easy for me to have such negative feelings about certain celebrities? So seeing it in the book was also like a nice check yourself, like, oh, it's really easy to have these feelings for famous people because you think they don't have problems, but it's like everybody has problems. And some people have worse problems and then have to deal with those in front of millions of people. So I enjoyed it. I thought it like added a little extra layer of depth, of like the depth of what the struggle becomes when you are this famous and have all this shit that's happened to you.
Yeah, I agree. I loved mixed format stories, and like you, the only thing that threw me off was the time jump. So not just Maddie's memoir, but like the therapy sessions that Logan went to, like in the future. Like both of those things I thought were happening in the current moment, just like you did. And so it took me a second to like realize. It took me way more than a second. It took me a long time to realize that they were both happening in the future. So that's the only thing that like threw me off, but I really like the inclusion of so many different types of formats. I think for me, the only thing that I was just like, and I'm never going to get an answer to this, but I was just really curious because I don't know. I know, Tasha, you don't follow like book drama the way me and Chris do. And so you won't remember a couple years ago when like Kacen made like their exit from the internet. But it was like this big deal. They wrote this really long letter and they were basically like, I'm done being available to people and having to listen to people like tear me apart and like act like they know me and all these things. And they deleted all of their social media accounts and they just like disappeared from the face of the earth. And this is the first book, I'm pretty sure, that has come out since they did their disappearing act. And so when I was reading all this, I was like, I don't know how much of it is like coming from a place of like, oh, this happened to me as an author, and it really, really fucking sucked. But I'm not gonna write a book about an author dealing with this, so I'm gonna write about actors. Like, like it just made me really curious to know if it was like tied to their exit from the internet, because I remember like when they wrote that letter, which of course was a very elegantly worded, you can probably still find it on the internet. All authors were like, oh my gosh, like I wish I could do that, if I didn't. Everybody was basically saying like, yeah, it sucks to have like an online presence and be accessible to people, but like we feel like we need to do this for our jobs, which is what the characters in this book go through too, right? Like Maddie like hates being in the spotlight, hates being, but is like basically told like this is part of the job and you have to do it. And so yeah, I was definitely thinking about those things too, as we kind of see all these different aspects of not always hate, but always just people chiming in with their own opinion where they don't need to share their opinion.
Yeah, big time. I forgot. I mean, I don't even remember the circumstances of what happened, but I remembered like when we were talking about book drama, before we went, before we started recording the episode. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This author is also like offline, like mega offline. I kept my Twitter because I felt like I'm not active on Twitter. I've never been a poster on Twitter. I'm just like a lurker on Twitter. And a lot of the things that I know about bad actors in certain scenes or problematic authors has come from Twitter. Like it's kind of like I want to log off, but without this, I don't get the tea. And it is a toxic cesspool of a website. And I also have to remember to like log off. But there have been times when I'm like, oh, I understand, why people are canceling this author or this TTRPG creator is no longer cool, a lot of that stuff filters into my Instagram as well. But like Twitter is really the place where like I go and get like my confirmation, my like receipts. Lots of people still make threads, with the receipts. And I appreciate all the work that you do, but also like make sure you log off as well. Seeing the additional points of view, it reminded me a lot of the Heartstopper drama about, this toxic fandom, this toxic celebrity fandom around the actors and how, they were accusing the redhead, I forget, I didn't watch Heartstopper. But the redhead, they were accusing him of queer baiting, and it ended up forcing him to come out. And it was
they were accusing the
the bisexual character
of not being queer because they were in a movie where they dated a girl.
Right. And yeah, he writes something as well, like, like I'm out. This isn't how I wanted to do this, but y'all fucking suck. And it's just unfortunate. I wish that this is why we can't have nice things. I did like that outside perspective, right? Because, being a celebrity that's part of being a celebrity. You have so many eyes on you. And I would be having a complete fucking breakdown if like would be me. And I was having like everybody see me go through my worst moments, like millions and millions of people speculating about me, writing fan fiction about me. I would perish. Someone would have to take my computer away. I would need, like, if I was a famous person, I would have to become the kind of person who I have a team and they keep me safe from the world because I would not be able to handle that. But then maybe that means that I'm also just not in touch with what people are saying. Anyway, it's weird. Social media, what can I say? Toxic celebrity fandoms, what can I say? I like having that additional context and how that colored, the rest of the story. So yeah, okay. We've talked a lot about, the preface of the book, the structure of the book. We can talk about the plot now. So we have Logan, who is our bad boy, and we have Maddie, who is our cutie patootie golden boy. What did you think of the characters? What did you think of their relationship as it progressed in the story? And if you had any other thoughts sprinkled into that.
I liked the dynamic. If I'm being honest, I thought Maddie was kind of boring. Just because this is like a character who's starting to become famous, and his whole struggle was about like not feeling confident. I don't know. I was trying to understand what the big kind of issue was, other than the fact that his dad just like rejected him for being gay. And then he had his like mom and sister's support. But it's like I was trying to figure out why, like what his deal was. Because it almost felt like I think it was unfair to pit him up against like Logan's trauma, because Logan had so much bad shit happen to him that I understood every reaction that was going on. And then Maddie was like, "Oh yeah, I have anxiety from this." And I'm like, "Yes, yes." But like, okay, what else? What else is happening? But I think that the progression of the relationship went in a good direction, because it wasn't then about like, oh, Maddie has his own issues so much as like, well, whatever feelings and issues he was going through were not as important as Logan. And like he started centering Logan in his own life more than himself. And once that became kind of the thread of Maddie's story, then I was like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense. I'm enjoying this a lot more. But as far as like first meetings, like how that relationship developed, I thought there was gonna be like a lot more tension, because there was definitely built in like scripted tension between the characters that they were playing. But it's kind of like Maddie and Logan just started hanging out, and by like the third time they were hanging out, it just seemed like they already liked each other, and it wasn't super unsure of whether they were into each other or not. So I thought that was funny. I thought there was going to be a lot more resisting their feelings. But I mean, if I was paired up with a super hot scene partner who was like made it known they were into me, I don't know that I would be playing hard to get either. So like, I get it. But no, I was into the relationship approach. I thought it was like, I think looking at it through a lens of like almost not really, but like a flavor of bonding through trauma, and like through working through Logan's trauma and Maddie trying to like be his person. I thought that that was like an interesting framework for the relationship, because it wasn't easy at the beginning, it wasn't easy in the middle, it wasn't easy in the end. There was like so much that they both had to work through, and like admitting that they each had failed in one thing or the other towards the other person. Like it was just really interesting all the way through. And yeah, whenever I hit a wall where I was like, oh God, this character, Jesus, then it's like, we don't know how trauma manifests. Like, don't be a dick. Don't be a dick. You got to approach this with an open mind. You've freaked out about things that did not require freaking out about in the past. And plenty of people on the internet would probably talk a lot of shit about you too. So let's read this with grace. Grace for everybody.
To kind of, I agree with everything Tashai said, but also to take it in another direction. Kacen writes a lot of children's books, award-winning children's books. And I think something that children's authors always try to do is model healthy ways of doing things for kids. And so I thought this book did a really good job of modeling like how to date someone with trauma without losing yourself, and like how to heal yourself so that you can be together kind of stuff. Because I feel like this is a very common situation that a lot of people find themselves in, where like you'll date someone and then you'll be like, no, they're not the person that everybody thinks they are. They just act this way because of X, Y, and Z. And if I'm just patient and loving, like everything will turn out all right. And often it doesn't turn out okay. And so I think Kacen did a really good job of showing why it doesn't often turn out okay, but also how it's not impossible for it to turn out okay if like both of you do this like healing work and set really good boundaries and communicate with each other, and come at it from a place of like, you don't need each other, you just want each other there. So yeah, it really worked for me as a pairing, because I kind of enjoyed seeing that modeled out for me. And I think a lot of people need that, even adults. It's just nice to sometimes see things modeled out in healthy ways, and to see characters who both go to therapy and who both take different approaches on how to deal with their family members, about traumatic things, and they make the decisions where they cut some people out of their lives, and it was just nice to see it all play out in what I thought were like generally very healthy ways. So yeah, I just thought it was cool to see it work out that way. Like it didn't just feel like it was messiness for messiness sake. I thought like Kacen was also like very pointedly trying to tell us something with these characters.
I agree. I think that, yeah, I saw that. And it's funny too, because I think in other books I have complained about like, well, nobody went to therapy. And so this is wrapped up too quickly. And so I think one of my biggest critiques is that the book, I think that maybe I was ready for it to be more messy, I want to say. Given what I know about like celebrities and what they do. I mean, and it was pretty intense, but like I think on the page it was fairly mild. When we meet Logan, he's kind of like trying to right the train almost. So he's like trying to get himself on track, and like a lot of the, his partying and everyone talks about it in hindsight. So I think on the page it wasn't quite as messy as I thought it was going to be. But I do have to say that I felt like the story and the way that it was told kind of like lacked some teeth. One of the things that took me out from the story is how patient and loving Maddie was. Maybe because of the kind of person that I am, where I kind of like my boundaries are much closer to me in that sense, where if I feel like someone is being pretty toxic or whatever to me in particular as a romantic partner, I'm like, I'm not putting up with that. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it. And so I did think that it was cool to see Maddie truly care about Logan and want to help and realize that he was losing himself in this whole relationship. But I also felt like, where did you learn this? I don't know. I felt like, did you read a book about this? I felt like a lot of that, a lot of you knowing how to deal with someone that way comes from practice. I know how to deal with people like that in my life because I have dealt with people like that in my life in the past. I know where my boundaries are because I have experienced things before, and now I'm like, okay, this is what I will not do anymore. And I thought it was interesting that Maddie was kind of like out the gate, really good with Logan, really understood like, where to go. And then we don't really see where this comes from. And I feel like I found that to be, of all the things, even if them becoming authors, playing authors and then becoming authors, of all the things, I found that to be the most, for me, hard to believe, because I think, yes, you can naturally be like a really empathetic person, but navigating such a complex situation, navigating such a in which you are intrinsically like in it. Like he's fucking this guy. Like they're having sex. They're in a relationship. And it's supposedly his first relationship like this, like his first serious relationship like this. And I'm just like, where is this? This is too good to be true. Like, I don't know about you, but I would have been fucking up left and right trying to save this person from themselves. And while I appreciate having like a good model of it, I was like, man, I kind of wanted them to fight more. I'll be honest. I kind of, I like to see like, wow, that Maddie say, that really hurt me, Logan. What you did really hurt me, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, this is really mature, but like, I don't know if this is this is what would have actually happened if this was Maddie's first, you know, relationship that had this, because his trauma, as Tashai was saying, was like was parental, I guess, in nature. Him like being rejected and feeling shame because his father wouldn't accept him, and I felt that didn't cross over with the Logan stuff. Like I was like, I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, Andrea, because I did
Yeah, no,
kind of
I do agree with you. I think especially not so much when they were talking to each other, but anytime like Maddie would talk about like therapy or trauma, or like sometimes I don't
you
know how
seem
to.
very informed.
Yeah, I did, and sometimes it was like I'd be reading it and I'd be like, okay, you can stop telling, like, you can stop telling me about how this, because I already know how it works. And then I'd be like, okay, but probably other people don't. But then I'd be like, wait, but then that means Maddie probably. But for me, it was more the introspective parts, more so than when they were like fighting or whatever, just because, yeah, sometimes I was like, these people are very insightful, both about their own traumas and other people's traumas, in a way that someone else is writing them. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like how it would naturally happen out in the world. But I also feel like this writing this book probably involved a lot of like self-healing for the author, and I feel like that plays a part in it too. You know what I mean? It's it's like when we read Outfield Assist. Like, is it realistic that entire baseball teams go to kink clubs and like date each other? Yeah, probably not. But you know, this is the world the author wanted, and so maybe Kacen just wants a world where everyone's very trauma informed, and you know, everyone's open to therapy and all these things. So yeah, and I think I said this in our chats. You know, this is not my favorite Kacen Callender book. Their middle grades in general are my preferred of their age, of their audiences that they write for. But I did enjoy it. It's just, yeah, there were parts like you said that like took me out a little bit because of that. But I'm open to this being. You know what? I would really love to see a movie version of this. I
Oh, me
think it
too.
would be nuts. And I think in a movie version, because we wouldn't get so much of the inner thought part, I think it would naturally be a little messier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think because we get a lot of their inner thoughts, we do, you know, we just get to understand them a little bit better, but they are very self-aware. And that really is my only quibble. I think there are also some parts where internally the character says something and then later in a scene they say the same thing. And I found that like a little bit repetitive, but I still enjoyed it. That was just my only, like, if I were to be rating this would be the parts where I'm like, well, I found this part hard to believe. Not because I don't think people can overcome this, but just because I feel like people naturally in the society that in which we live, right? We're not like really accustomed to like dealing with this in a really humane and understanding way. Like if Maddie's sister had been adopted from foster care, I would have believed it. I would have been like, yes, I
You
understand
know
how.
what? But even then, that's like a perfect example because
Yeah.
it's like through foster care, like I went through all these trainings. I always knew what I should do, but that
Mhm.
didn't mean that I was always able to react in that way because we're all human and like people
Exactly.
like te sacan de quicio, you know, like
Yeah.
there's just no way around. So I just feel like even if Maddie had all that previous knowledge,
He still, yeah,
yeah.
I'm like, where is this coming from? Did you read a blog? Like, are you a self-help book? I don't know. Self-help audiobooks on the drive here. I don't know. It was just a little bit much for me, but I appreciated seeing it on the page. And I think that I hope that this book finds its way into the hands of someone who needs it to maybe understand someone in their life who they really care about and how they can act in order to help them without giving too much of themselves, like when to rein back. I don't know. Tashai, did you have any thoughts about, Maddie's super loving and understanding nature and if it felt natural to you at all?
Well, I was gonna say that now that you guys are going back and forth about it, I agree that it's just not, in my opinion, realistic because a lot of his reactions felt like something that would happen as like a retrospective reaction to something. Or if you put a pause on what's going on, you leave, you kind of analyze your feelings, you decide how you feel, and then you return to the conversation. Because I, strive to be as self-aware as I can be in the way that I react to things in my own relationship. And sometimes you just freak out about something and you don't know what you're freaking out about. And I'll like something random will happen and then I'm like crying and I don't know why I'm crying and I'm apologizing about it because I don't know why this reaction is happening. And then it takes some back and forth of like, oh, I think that this is because of this. I think I'm having this reaction because of this. Let's like talk about it. And then you can kind of like figure out what was at the core of the reaction and you like work through it and then it ends up being okay. But the immediate reaction that's like not the healthy one tends to be the one that happens immediately because none of us can like Zach Morris pause the clock. Let's talk about like let me go online, let me like figure out what's like a trauma response. Okay, action, let's go back in and like, okay, now I have the perfect response to you in the moment. So now that you guys are talking about it, it is kind of like, where is he getting this skill set where he's like a fucking crisis negotiator and has a decade's worth of training and psychiatric background in how to like handle somebody who's having like a traumatic response.
So, okay, since we're talking about character growth, so what did you think of the end, right? There are a lot of characters in this and there's a lot of incidents in this, but we can talk about it in like final thoughts. My most pressing thought right now is, what did you think of the ending? So this was kind of like an interesting, almost like second chance romance almost. So it was like fake dating turns into real dating, but it doesn't work out, and then there's a second chance, and then we end with a second chance. Logan is done with acting. It works as a barista, and I love that for him. Maddie is also moving on from acting and directing and whatever, and then they end up finding each other again and we're trying again. So I want to know, what were your thoughts about how that ended and this kind of like mishmash of tropes? Do you think it worked out? I'll save my thoughts for when you guys are done talking, because I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. Tasha, I see you're ready to jump in, so go for it.
There were, a few things that took me out in the story overall. Maddie's been acting for like 3 years and he gets an Oscar. Like, what are you talking about? This is his first movie where he is the lead in a rom-com. He doesn't do well in the read-through, doesn't do well for like most of the time. Like, the only reason that it works for him is because he's actually in love with his co-star, which like works its way through him. And then we check back in with them and he's won an Oscar. No, that's not how that happens. I'm sorry. Like, immediately I'm like, no. If he had gotten like a best supporting actor, maybe he'd done like TV and gotten a Golden Globe. Like, I'll believe that. I'll believe he was nominated. And like, it's opened up a lot of doors for him, sure. But he won an Oscar. That's like fucking Jennifer Lopez in that one movie where she is like super famous and then like marries the guy, marry me, where she's like, oh yeah, because she like won the Oscar, won the Grammy. I'm like, get out of here. That's not how that happens. Get out of here. Second Maddie disappointment. He starts dating the white guy, the one British white guy. That's who he decides he's gonna rebound with, and he doesn't even like him, but he puts up with it for 10 months. Like, didn't you learn already from what happened with Logan that maybe if it's not working out, like, you don't stick it out? Like, the whole journey for him is, it's supposed to be like he's supposed to learn how to do what he wants to do and like stand up for himself and like actually find the things that make him happy. But no, it's 3 years later and he's like in a 10-month relationship with this guy who he's not into and he doesn't like, but he's like so even more so, there was no growth for Maddie. He just doesn't do things and then continues to not do things, and then like bumps into Logan. And he's like the rich and famous one now. So there's been a like power dynamic shift. Everything that Logan did believable to me. He went to rehab. He had to go to rehab for a really long time. He still has things he has to work through. He's meditating. He's still going to therapy. He still has triggers, but he's trying to just like, what's a thing that I can do where I can feel good about the work that I do every day? And it's not changing anyone's life necessarily, but I can go out and I can feel good about what I'm doing. And now like maybe I can get involved in theater. Like, I think that is a very well told arc for the character. But with Maddie and like how that all worked out, I was like, really? He's the one writing the memoir too? Why isn't Logan writing a memoir? Logan's memoirs give me a lot more interesting. It's fine. I'm okay. I did appreciate the relationship. I'm glad they got another chance at the end. I'm like, maybe Maddie's more interesting now. Maybe Logan's just trying to find someone who's like not gonna be too spicy because he needs something that's gonna like keep him grounded so that he can continue to progress and like be able to live a good life that's healthy for him and brings joy to him in the way that is like good for him. So maybe that's the lesson, is that sometimes the significant other that's best for you is one that's gonna like keep you grounded, who's kind of boring, but they're like a good person. You can't have two spicy people in a relationship. One of you needs to be the sour cream to the other person's mango habanero salsa. That's fine. Maybe that's what it is. That's what I took away from that relationship.
Okay, I think you're forgetting the sex though, because they had sex like once and it was like the best sex Logan had ever had in his whole life. Like, he almost like passed out and like cried, and he had like a complete like meltdown because this sex was so like emotionally earth-shattering. So
I'm also confused about that too, because then when they have sex, Maddie suddenly is like a dom. Like he's like, oh, I'm in charge in the bedroom. And I'm like, are you though? Like, are you sure? And then I appreciate the consent conversation while they were having sex. Like I thought that was really good. And the fact that when they like reconnect, they kind of start in that direction, and Logan recognizes that he cannot go there because he is disassociating, and that's not how they want to start this like physical part of their relationship. I appreciated all of that. But when they did have sex, I was like just not convinced that that's necessarily how it would play out. But you know what? I'm not gonna predict what's happening in anyone else's bedroom. I don't know what's going on with anybody. So if that's how that worked out for them, then like cool.
okay, I agree that Logan's ending was the most satisfying, just because it was really nice to see him just take charge of his own healing and do all these different things. The rehab, yes, but also just like the cutting his dad out of his life and choosing a job of his own rather than the job that he had been like thrust into as a child and just kind of continued doing into adulthood. That was all really cool. I think it makes sense to me that Maddie ended up in theater because the whole time he's been saying, I love acting, but I don't want to be in the spotlight. I hate like the attention. And the reality is that there are tons of really, really great actors in theater, and no one like gives a shit about them online in the same way that they do like movie stars and TV actors. Like, unless you're really into theater, you know what I mean? I feel like the general population um just doesn't. I guess it's the same with books, right? Like outside of people who are like really readers, like people don't know authors the way they know actors. So I think it makes sense for him as a career choice. Like he can still do the things that he likes, but kind of out of that spotlight. um I guess I didn't really think about the Oscar stuff too much, but I mean, again, I I don't know. It's only because of the author's note that I feel like this book is like maybe a little bit like, I don't know how like autobiographical it might be, but like I'm just saying, Kacen won like really big awards like for all of their first books, you know? And so maybe they were just thinking like, okay, like this character is gonna like win stuff like right off the bat as an actor.
I would agree to that if the characters were white. But the Oscars are really racist. So
Okay, the way that I see it, the way that I saw it is that Maddie won in a year where the Oscars were like in trouble, and so they picked a light-skinned black man in order to win the Oscar, and then they were able to appease
okay.
the masses. That's what I was gonna say on my turn, but
I'm
carry on,
convinced
Andrea.
then. Apologies for the interruption, but I'm like, the Oscars are racist as fuck.
I know. That's also I literally wrote that in my notes where I was like, Oscars on a bad year.
Yeah, and then in terms of like his rebound relationship, I think that did make sense for me because I feel like his thing with Logan was so hard, and he had lost so much of, or he felt like he had lost so much of his own agency and like power, that I feel like he was just like, what's going to be like an easy, non-traumatic relationship where like I'm not going to have to be dealing with this, and also I'm going to be the one calling the shots. So like that's kind of how I saw it, and like this is a more cynical Maddie now, okay? So so you know, he put a little more thought into it, you know, as he was picking who to date. But yeah, I do think the Logan outcome is the more satisfying one. But I like that they just met randomly. I like that neither of them like sought each other out explicitly, even though Maddie kept going to his cabin like like a sad little puppy. But you know, other than that, nobody really you know looked for each other, and I like that it was kind of a completely coincidental meeting. Like that sounded cool. I agree that the memoir would have been better written by Logan, but I also feel like Logan is so done with the spotlight, you know, that he would not want to put himself out there for like book reviewers.
The fact that Maddie was so dommy was surprising to me as well. That I will say, if I were going to pick between a trauma-enforced response to, you know, something or being like naturally a dom in the bedroom, I could believe that more than the other, you know. But I was like, this is interesting. And I think that maybe it was a way for the author to kind of, I don't know, subvert the expectations of what their sexy times was going to look like. And because Maddie was so bland IRL, that in the bedroom, that was going to be the way that, you know, he took control. And I think that is what he says too. He's like, I felt like I was more in control by dictating what was going to happen in the bedroom, by being more like, you know, get on your knees, take your pants off, blah, blah, blah. I guess maybe I did not find the sexy times to be as explosive as both of them felt like it was. Like I really was like, wait, what? But, you know, again, just like Tosh, I'm not going to try to tell anybody like what their experience should be in the bedroom, you know, but I was like, okay, y'all rub dicks. Like, okay. I hope there are better times for you ahead. This is a great start.
I think the Dom thing for me, the way I read it, was very much like not like a character choice so much as like just a way to contrast. What was the other guy's name? Like the douchebag who tried to like assault him. When they were together, right? It was very much like a toxic Dom sub situation, right? Where it was always like very rough and there was no aftercare, and he very much just like the other dude just did what he wanted when he wanted, and then he left. And so to me, making Maddie a Dom was just a way for like Kacen to show that like there's healthy ways to be a Dom. You know what I mean? Like that's more so how I read it, like how it's okay to want to be a sub, and it's so like you can find people who will Dom you in like healthy, loving ways. That's how I read it. Like I agree that I didn't necessarily see Maddie in that role, but that's the purpose for that I saw in the book.
I think that framing Maddie as a Dom is an interesting way to subvert the opinion that the public in the book has of him, of being this like very sweet, young, flawless, beautiful, pristine, like sexless angel. Like he is put on this pedestal of being so flawless and sweet and young, and you do get a lot of celebrities that get just like infantilized. So I think with like child actors, I think with celebrities who are younger, you have either the like intense infantilization, which is like you don't want to see them not be the child star that you saw them being as they were growing up, like Jenna Ortega doing the like horror movie X, because she
Or
knew
like that the Stranger Things girl.
yeah, Millie Bobby Brown, like you either are, they try to sexualize you from a really young age, and be weird about it, especially in the 2000s when they were doing the fucking countdowns for people to turn 18 because the people are fucking gross, or they don't want you to become a sexual being. And so I think it's like with Logan, he was sexualized and abused from a very young age by the industry. And then with Maddie, he's being put on this like virginal pedestal because there is no nuance on the internet. You're either a terrible person or you're like this like pristine angel. So I do think that it's interesting that in the bedroom it's like these roles are reversed, that Maddie is the one who's like more in control, because I think it makes him more an adult. Like it gives him an adult space where he can follow his desires and like do what he wants to do and have these like sexual urges. And then it also gives Logan a space to say no, and like Andrea said, to be the one who puts up the boundaries and have the boundaries be respected, because that, you know, I think if I'm not mistaken, the way I've always understood like dom and sub is the control is really in the person who's being submissive, because they're the ones that put the red light, green light, and they're the ones that are in control. So I think it's like it gives Logan an opportunity to actually have control over something that has to do with his body for like probably the first time. So not spicy, but I think a healthy dynamic for two people who are in these very specific places.
Well said. That was very well said, and I can see that. This is why I save my opinions for after y'all tell it. I'm like, okay, my friends are so smart. Uh, audience, one thing that you don't say, like, Tashai started talking, and me and Andrea are immediately like nodding, like, yeah, yeah, so, yeah, snapping, like, you're totally right. Yes. Cool. Thank you for your thoughts. I always love hearing them, and you're so wise. I love hearing what you have to say, both of you. This book contained a fake relationship in the celebrity world, and everybody was speculating about it, and it was like planned to the T. We got to see the agenda in which they had to get to know each other, and they were going to break up. I do believe that Hollywood is that methodical about, you know, appearances and whatever. And I wondered, do you you know, and you know, we're just going to engage in a teeny tiny bit of toxic, you know, fandom, speculating on the authenticity of people's relationships. And I can start with one off the top of my head. But I agree with the internet in saying that Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello's relationship was fucking fake. I don't believe for a second that those people were into each other at all. I think it was a publicity stunt to get like that song out. It was terrible. Their relationship looked terrible. And I just don't think that they worked together as a couple. I did not believe that they were in love with each other. So that is who I think is a fake relationship. I'm sure there's tons more, but off the top of my head, that's the one that comes to me. I don't know, Tashai, what do you think? Who do you think is like, who was out here trying to scam us into thinking they were a real couple?
Bad Bunny and Kendall Jenner. I don't believe that was real at all. I think that he was getting set up to do his Gucci campaign, and he had the new album coming out, and he was doing his world tour, and he was trying to get additional exposure, and she had her tequila line that she came out with, which upset a lot of people in the Mexican community and a lot of Latin Americans. And so they set her up with Bad Bunny to try to strengthen her tequila brand and try to erase the negative reactions that were happening, and also get them both co-campaigns with high-end fashion houses, specifically the Gucci campaign that they both took part in. That was not real.
Okay. Andrea, do you have anybody, you know, maybe from a show?
No, but tell me more.
All right. My last question for y'all is, obviously this dealt with like Hollywood and actors, and in my mind I was casting these two, and I want to know who you cast as your people. So okay, I'm gonna share my screen. I watch Bridgerton, and I think that Reggie, is it Reggie? I call him Reggie John. I think Reggie John has the range. I think he's got the range to be a tortured, light-skinned Hollywood actor. This is who I imagine this is who I cast as Logan, and then who I cast as Maddie was that one guy from Grey's Anatomy. This is who I picked as Maddie for us. Again, another light-skinned black actor, has the light eyes, and like he's giving me sweetheart. I could look at the freckles. I could imagine him playing as an ashamed Southern homosexual who would put up with, this hotties bullshit. That's who I cast. Who did you cast, or if you have anybody, who did you cast as your Maddie and Logan for the movie, books, and whatever?
I barely know like actors in general. So these are just black. They're not white passing. They're not mixed. Like, my knowledge of actors and celebrities is so limited. The indie Jose that I gotta just work with what I got. So for Logan, I saw him as Lil Nas. I just feel like that's a vibe that Logan would have, you know, where it's like, this is someone that you would find looking like how Tashai is looking right now after a party, and maybe just makes a lot of mistakes and has a lot of stuff going on. And then for Maddie, I went with the dude who plays Winston in New Girl. Because
Bishop? Winnie the Bish?
I just feel like I only know him from New Girl, so this is 100% the only thing I'm basing this off. But I just feel like Maddie has that like stupid, sunny, like happy kind of personality that's like way too naive. And I also feel like, you know, like he can look like a heartthrob if he tries.
I mean, look at those abs, like clearly.
Right. But then like when you see him in like a t-shirt acting goofy, it's like boy next door, you know? So anyway, that's what I picked. That's why I picked.
Interesting. Okay. Tashai, would you please share your casting of the movie / book?
This is my Logan, Jesse Williams, but older Jesse Williams. And then the rapper Logic, who is mixed, but is more white passing, who also has like light eyes, but specifically nerdy styled Logic because he looks cute. Here, specifically in this photo, he looks a little quieter. He looks a little more innocent. So I was trying to figure out, I'm like, well, who fits the like physical description from
No, that's book? Right. You are, that is a good pick. That is a good pick. I didn't even know Logic was black. I'll be honest. I didn't know he was mixed until like a couple years back. I was like, what?
Tell me look like someone who could be like, oh yeah, I don't know. And then in the bedroom be like, get on your knees. Like
Shy. But Indy, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Indy has thoughts about our casting. He does. He's
just sometimes I swear he's gonna be 14 this year, and I think he's just like connected to the afterlife in a way now because sometimes he just looks at the like he's literally looking at the ceiling and making those noises. I'm like, sir, what do you see there? I see
definitely ghosts. So
those are all the questions I had for you. Do you have any sort of final thoughts? And then we can talk about what else we're reading and then what we're reading next month.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the book. It was a good read. I thought that it was really nuanced. I thought that it has to do with celebrity, and obviously I'm a celebrity whore. I love all this kind of stuff. But I appreciated the point of view of someone who's been through like the realistic challenges of what it is to be a celebrity and the terrible things that can happen and the long-term effects that can have on people.
I feel like we've all agreed pretty much on everything we've said, but we've all come at it from different angles, and I really enjoyed that. I really liked the book. I still have not seen that Netflix documentary, the Nickelodeon one, but I do want to see it. I assume, Tashai, you've seen it. Or you were talking about it too.
Watching it. I've seen the first like 2 or 3 episodes, but I'm also like, gotcha. I'm on.
Yeah, I know. Like Chris said,
I get all the videos. I know all the things.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I would check out an adult book by Kacen Callender again. I definitely think their middle grades are more my jam, but yeah, I would check out their adult ones in the future.
Okay, yeah, same. I really enjoyed it. I think I've also really enjoyed our discussion on like really heavier topics that this kind of brings up, but also, talking about celebrity stuff. And I'm just about ready to dash off. I don't want to, I just want to make sure that I'm, I already got my photo up. I'm ready to get out of here. But before I do, let me know, what else are you reading? I returned from a road trip recently and I have not been able to really get into much, but I have been reading the No Girlfriend Rule, which is really cute.
I'm reading Puerto Rico, A National History.
So next month, we are going to be reading Tashai's pick, which is an anthology called Love in Color. These are mythical tales from around the world. I'm always excited to read an anthology. And so I'm glad that we're reading another one this year.
I have a question. I know you're busy, Chris, but will we be getting a short story annotator for this upcoming?
That was the plan. Yes, I'll make you one, I promise.
Yes.
Thank you for making it to the end of our episode and spending some of your precious time with us. You can support Only Lovers Book Club for free by subscribing to our shows and sharing our episodes. Make sure to like the video or leave us a comment. Or if you're listening, don't forget to leave us a review in your podcatcher of choice. You can also become a supporter on Ko-fi or buy some books from our bookshop. All of those links are in the description box. You can follow us on Instagram at Only Lovers Book Club.